The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 176.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Mike Creavey, aka Old Ben, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, where we are actually in the show right now, including the deeper themes and meanings. So please be sure to share this podcast on Facebook or the X, formerly known as Twitter, and let us know how we're doing by leaving us a review. By the way, I'll ask you guys later, but we can, if we get some extra time, we can see if it might be good to, maybe have. You know, Prince did that like different symbol he used for a while. That was just for himself. Yeah, so maybe we can do something. Anyway, I digress.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Exactly. So on this episode of Secrets of Star Wars, we're here to unpack the season finale of Ahsoka, season 1, and to take a final look at I don't know what I think really amounts to the first foray into live action Rebels. Basically, it was my big takeaway, and I loved it. So, joining me tonight is an all-star panel comprised of Josh Beeghley. How you doing, Josh?
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you with us, and also with us, Robert King. How's it going?
Going pretty well.
Great.
Glad to be talking about Star Wars.
Oh, always, always. And last but not least, Kathryn Laffrey. Kathryn, how are you doing?
Good.
I'm excited. I don't know if all of you guys, I decided to celebrate. I have my famous Octu coffee, where I basically make an Irish coffee in Diet Green. Like if Luke was going to make some sort of alcoholic beverage on that island, I think it would look like that. But anyways, before we jump into Ahsoka and the synopsis here of this last episode, I just want to ask you guys, I mentioned before we started recording, this of course leaves us in the doldrums here, as we've now gotten used to, of having these periods of time where we don't have live action Star Wars, which I'm trying not to be spoiled because, right, I mean, most of our lives that was like, something we just dreamed of being a possibility. So we don't have to wait too long in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure. But anything you guys are looking forward to? I think Skeleton Crew and Acolyte are supposed to be the next things up. What do you think?
In theory, as much as anything is the next thing up at this point.
Good point.
No expectations for what's next. Just savoring what we just saw.
Hey, sounds good. That's
I'd like another video. Oh.
You think so? Oh, yeah. Is there one, Josh, you're more interested in between the two of those? I mean, I don't feel like we haven't really heard a whole lot about either one of them.
No, I feel like Acolyte just sounds more interesting because it's, again, High Republic era, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting away from all of that sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think they said, I don't know if they committed to this, but it sounded like, if I remember correctly, like 100 years or so before, 90 or 100 years before episode 1. So
Yoda's
some potential. Yeah. Maybe some Plagueis? I don't know. Well, we'll see. I feel like they have to do that eventually. Maybe not.
That would be interesting. I mean, but it's not about, it's not about the rise of Palpatine. So
right.
It's not how he returned.
Right. Yes.
Somehow
Palpatine will rise. Like, okay, just like, don't do that on the other side of it. Oh my goodness. Well, we'll just have to see, because of course the strikes that are, I think, wrapping up or nearing the end, but we'll see what they have. I think Skeleton Crew was supposedly originally announced for a late 2023 release, but now I haven't heard them officially push it back, but we'll see. Goonies in space, they said. That'll be an interesting thing to see. So. But we are here, of course. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say Star Wars always seems to like bounce between, you know, something for kids and something for adults. And Lucas always seemed to want to have it both ways. But yeah, it's been a while since we've had something really for kids in the Star Wars universe. So hopefully Skeleton Crew can be that. Yeah.
We'll see. I'm excited. I mean, I think there's definitely room for Jude Law in the Star Wars universe. I think for some reason, I feel like he might fit in there nicely. So time will tell. But we're of course here tonight to dig into this Ahsoka finale, and really probably by extension, I would imagine the show as a whole. I didn't look back at my notes here, but I think we've all been on a couple of these, or at least one. I was on, I think, episode 3 as a panelist. So this I think is a good opportunity to maybe kind of take a look at the whole show as a whole, and maybe speculate where it's moving forward. So to start, though, I just want to give a synopsis for those who I don't really think these people exist, but in case you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, and here it is. First of all, the title, which I want to come back to later, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, which was a pretty awesome title, aired on October 3rd, 2023 originally. And thanks to Wikipedia, here's the great little synopsis. To confront the Jedi, Morgan Elsbeth is gifted Mother Talzin's sword by the Great Mothers, while Bridger constructs a new lightsaber using spare parts from his late master Kanan Jarrus. After their ship is damaged by a fighter attack, Ahsoka, Ren, and Bridger make, I don't know why they go with last names. we know who they are, but so Sabine and Ezra, they make their way on foot to the Chimera, which has docked with the Eye of Sion. They are confronted by Elsbeth and the Night Troopers, whom the Great Mothers keep resurrecting after they are killed. Ren uses the Force to help Bridger jump onto the Chimera, then she stays behind to help Ahsoka, who kills Elsbeth. The Eye of Sion jumps to hyperspace, leaving Ahsoka, Ren, and Huyang stranded on Peridea. As Thrawn and the Great Mothers arrive over Dathomir, Bridger escapes and reunites with Syndulla and Chopper. Ahsoka, Ren, and Huyang join the... Is it Noti or Nati? I forget. I think it's Noti. The little shell dudes. Yeah. They join them and make their new home on Peridea, watched over by Anakin's spirit. Shin Hati joins the bandits, while Baylan Skoll is guided to a mountain by a statue of the Mortis gods. Which I'm really excited. I have Mortis on my notes near the end. So, but I just thought we'll go around here. I'll go in alphabetical order just for the heck of it. So Josh, starting with you, what was your overall kind of takeaway from this episode?
Sort of like how you were saying, Mortis. It's really hard not to think of that, just because of seeing him like physically on their statues at the end. It's pretty hard to miss it and be like, it's interesting to see that they were, I guess, a part of this galaxy, like this different galaxy, and how it all ties together.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would love to then see, like, in a future season of, like, Baylan, like, looking at whatever he saw at the end. But then it's just like, God rest his soul, he's passed. So it makes it an interesting dilemma.
We could have a whole, tangent just on that. I imagine they're going to have to recast Ray Stevenson, probably. I don't know how you do that, but...
I really hope not.
Yeah, I mean, unless... something happens. Someone speculated, a couple people I heard speculating about, like, what if we meet back up with him and he's had some kind of transformation that requires a mask, or I don't know. My
husband said they're going to open the next season with that arm breaking off and Baylan falling to his death. Like, no.
Yeah, but don't think
that
they
would
can
be
do
anticlimactic.
That. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What about you, Rob? What was your overall kind of takeaway from this?
I've kind of had this sense from just the overall pacing of the season, but I'm really interested in where this story is going. And I feel like all of season 1, there's been a lot of cool stuff, and I've enjoyed every episode of it, but it feels like it's all set up for the real story. And I want to know where it's going.
I think, that's... What about you, Kathryn? Is this the same boat, or did you... how did you feel?
I'm totally with Robert on this. Yeah. It felt like this is a build up to something more. So every episode, I'm waiting for the something more, a little teaser of this, a little teaser of that. I mean, in this episode, they did tie in some things that were missing for me. Like, how in the world did Ezra and Thrawn end up separating, and where did the witches come from and all that stuff? So I was glad they brought in some of that. But I don't know, I'm always waiting for more. It's like, oh, there's so much more to this story. We know there's so much more.
I thought it was so cool to literally have, Dave, who got to say a couple years ago, and I'm sure you guys saw it, and probably most, if not all of our listeners did as well, when, Dave was pressed repeatedly, where's Ezra? Where's Ezra? And he would just grin and say, far, far away. And it's like, for him to be able to actually name that episode that, and then bring it full circle. I mean, this has got to be a dream come true for him, right? To explore this. So I did want to ask, I forgot before, I wanted to throw this out to you guys as well. Any thoughts on the music in particular? Because I for what it's worth, I just thought the continuity of being able to have Kevin Kiner do this and kind of round out this and use some of these, the same themes, from Rebels and the continuity with his work on Clone Wars as well. I felt like anyone else in the driver's seat on that just would not have been right.
Yeah, the music really drove the scenes in so much of this last episode. And you could pick up when there'd be like, oh, the Force music, when Sabine's pushing Ezra and all different little things. Or when you see the tiny speck of Ahsoka going after Thrawn, and there's that little music that goes along. I mean, everything just kind of made it familiar and new and exciting at the same time. It was really good.
Do you guys think he's a worthy successor to John Williams? I don't know if that Williams is in his own category, of course, but I don't know. Or how do you think this music is compared to other shows? Maybe I don't know if that's a fair comparison, even because they're different. But some of the music on some of them hasn't really wowed me, or hasn't felt, I don't know, like it quite.
But this one has.
I thought this did. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I am not terribly sensitive to music. Like, I don't notice it until it's pointed out to me.
Okay.
So I'm not really a good person to judge, but I do feel like I think the music for most of the shows and films has been, I don't know, it's been pleasing to my ear. But as I say, my ear is not that sensitive, so I recuse myself.
I feel the exact same way.
Is that okay?
I know the music's there and you can hear it in the background, but it's just not in like the forefront of my mind when I'm watching. It's like I just get involved so much more in like the actual plot of the movie, which makes it a bit harder for me to be like, oh yeah, this music totally fits right now and makes so much sense. Like the only one I can think of really is like when Sabine was pushing Ezra, like Kathryn said. It's like it's such a recognizable sound, but then also they all have like their own slight twist on them from the originals.
Yeah,
which is just like doesn't sit quite right in my head, but it makes me focus on the music then.
I think one of the coolest things in I think it was Mandalorian, or no, it was Book of Boba Fett. That's always throws me off because the Mandalorian season 2.5, whatever that whole thing. Yeah. But there was a little like a little theme, and I don't know if that was Ludwig Göransson doing that or not. I have to look that up. But there's a little theme when Luke is training Grogu, where there's like this very like adventurous kind of music. And I swear it's modeled on purpose. I have to confirm this, so I haven't found anyone confirm it yet. It's like a major key, like upbeat version of Kylo Ren's theme.
Oh, interesting.
Which I swear, like I have to source that, but it's so similar that like my immediate thought was like, dude, that sounds like. I wonder were they trying like, so my mind went nuts with it. So like I'm totally like I get like sidetracked on the music sometimes. It's like is he saying like, oh wow, this is like the glory days of Luke's training and it's gonna go bad, and I was like, oh man. What I would hate to have happen is if whoever composed that particular little thing didn't think of that, and then they just steal it from me and claim that was their idea. So no.
I have to say the opening music for every episode set the mood so perfectly.
Yeah.
where you just felt like, oh, something intense is going to happen or something good is going to happen. It really got you into the mood of the episode. And then it just kind of played off from there. It was great. And then, the violins when we have zombie troopers rising from the dead. Wow. That was awesome.
I'm surprised they didn't try to adjust the release date a little bit to get that one a little closer to Halloween, but it prompted me to put up I have little flags in the back here. The guys watching this can see. I have my Halloween up. Have a ghoul-actic Halloween. So it's got these little stormtrooper ghosts floating around. That was my little homage to the zombie troopers. We'll get there soon. I'm that's like two bullets away. But I wanted to kind of turn the floor over here to I'm gonna put Josh on the spot because he pointed out I put down Morgan Elsbeth's transformation plus a new sword and a sacrificial mission, and Josh pointed out that it's not exactly a new sword. Do you want to share a little bit on that, Josh? Where did this show up before again?
I don't remember the exact season and episode, but it was in the Clone Wars whenever Jar Jar had his lover, the Queen.
Right.
Season 6, episode 9 is the second one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Kathryn knows the episode.
I was just watching it.
That's fair. It's a good episode.
Well, that was the one with him was that him and Mace?
Yes, Jar Jar and Mace Windu went to go rescue the Queen of the Gungan Queen, and
not a Gungan.
But
what was she?
Looked kind of Gungan-like, but definitely a different species. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm close enough.
Yeah, she was close enough.
Yeah.
But
no, let us sidetrack you some more.
The Queen was kidnapped by Mother Talzin, and then as she's going through some sort of ritual to have her, not her soul, but some sort of spirit of her ripped out, Jar Jar rescues her, but then Mother Talzin fights with Mace Windu using that sword.
Okay.
So she summons the exact same sword, and fights him. They get blown up at the end. Yeah.
I guess it just did they establish? Like, does the sword disappear, or I don't.
It's a magic sword,
right? That's so what am I doing? No, it's like
it can be summoned.
Yeah, she did sort of summon it in the same way. This sort of pillar of green,
that's so
magical light coalesced into the sword. So
just like Doctor Strange.
Well, and there's almost something like it's a lot of good food for thought, and I know we'll probably talk about this later because I think we've got the road ahead for Secrets of Star Wars. This really opens up some great opportunities to, in the interim here, right? Dig into some of these things like the Night Sisters and some of this because I think that's some material that would really be good. I think after this show to really go back and explore because I didn't really see their role coming in this. I don't know about you guys, for my money, they were one of the best carryovers, from the animated into live action. Totally creepy and very well done.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Did you guys, I don't know if I was just not catching it at first, but did you get it immediately? Like what Thrawn was getting at when he told Morgan, like, we need more time. Like, did you it took me like a good 10 or 15 seconds for some reason to really let it sink in. He was giving her this sacrificial mission. Like she's not going to come along kind of thing.
Oh, no.
It was immediately clear to me.
Yeah.
She was. He had his cool poker voice going and just was like, you're staying, you're doing this mission. And you could see it in her face right away. She just knew. I mean, it was, Well,
it's interesting to give Lars Mikkelsen this role because we all know his voice from the show and I should give I dedicate anything Thrawn related that I say in this episode to Father Andrew. So Father Fed, he texted me right after. He's like, "You'll have to let me know your thoughts." I was like, I need to think about it a little bit first, but yeah, because he's a big Thrawn fan and having the audiobooks too, which Mark Thompson's wonderful kind of impersonation of Lars Mikkelsen. Like the voice is so consistent for this character, but then to have like the facial expressions, and I'm finding like I find myself limited on reading, animated facial expressions, which can be very effective, but there's something different about a real human face. And I don't know, I kept getting this vibe off Thrawn that there's a little bit of like, actually, I don't know if sorrow, that might be a strong word, but he seemed like, to me at least, like he was not entirely happy or dispassionate to kind of have to stay behind. Did you guys catch that at all? Like he seemed like Thrawn sad. I don't know. He's still like Kathryn, you're right, poker
to
face.
leave her behind?
It's I don't know. It seemed like a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of like it's unfortunate or I don't know.
Oh,
I don't think they're buddies.
All
I
right
don't
with it.
Okay.
It seemed like it was very much in his plan.
Oh, okay.
Very much in his plan. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just he knows when he has a pawn to play.
Yeah.
And he will play that pawn out till it satisfies his needs, which he said later on. Unfortunate, but he expected it.
I definitely don't think there was any real, like he seemed pretty like, oh, she did what was necessary. Jump. Yeah. Like just
I mean, okay. he might have had a minor regret about having one fewer pawn on the ship with him going back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he absolutely regarded her as a pawn.
Sure.
And was 100% willing to, acceptable losses.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of this.
Yes. It's like everybody's a pawn to him, which is ironic because his name rhymes with pawn. I just realized that that's the closest to pawn he's gonna get. Oh my gosh. I think there was something else too I wanted to ask you guys about with so when we get to then Ezra, and running around making a lightsaber, which I thought was funny because the last episode when he's like, "Oh, you keep it. The Force is my ally," and I feel like one fight in, he's like, "Nah, you know what? A lightsaber really turns out to be pretty useful after all." So, like the first thing he does when he gets a chance is to make one. So, what do you guys think of that exchange between him and Hugh Yang? Why don't I start with you again, Josh?
I thought it was like really wholesome and just like the cutest thing ever again to see Hugh Yang just like using all of his arms everywhere to try and find something. And then even like the small interaction of them just talking about his master and be like, "Oh yeah, I remember him. He was a cool dude, basically." He's like, just in case you ever forgot it. That was probably the cutest part, I think, in my mind, was like, I kept this extra one just in case if you ever needed a new lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just like, he never did, but now Ezra gets it, and it's just it's a nice little homage to his master.
Yeah. Did you guys get I get Catholic vibes off it with like all the time with things like it's almost like a I don't know, a chalice or a vestment or something that your mentor had. Like there's like, I don't know, there's like this motif all the time in Star Wars of almost like this apostolic succession of either like authority or like like reading the church fathers, like Polycarp's memories of John and this kind of stuff. It's just, I don't know, I get. That's such an important part here, this succession, and that plays a big role in this episode too with Ahsoka and Anakin, or really through the whole show.
Yeah, it plays. The entire series is about legacy, and
that's it.
And this, this sense of what is passed on from master to apprentice, and it's put in very sort of sacramental terms of all that I am is in you, and there's this mystical sense of passing on not just knowledge in the sense of information, but a wisdom, a real spirit being passed on from master to apprentice, and that's something I don't think we've really seen in Star Wars before. I mean, we've seen close master-apprentice relationships, but this sense of the master-apprentice relationship as being one of transmitting a legacy in the terms of the show, or transmitting a character in a more Catholic way of speaking of it.
Yeah, it was nice to see two collectors comparing how to organize your stuff. I mean, Ezra had his little space full of all his junk he collected over the years, and then now he's comparing his collection to Huyang, who's had, 2,000 years of collecting to do. So it was just fun hearing them banter about how you collect your stuff. And then it was great to see Ezra tinkering again, because he was always tinkering and making and doing fun little things like that. So that was great. But then
I
also
love that distinction between a system or a method and a system. It's like you have a method. It is nothing like a system.
But another Catholic thought to go back to the Night Mothers and the way that they laid hands on Morgan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So in Clone Wars, when you have Ventress getting her dark baptism, and the same words are said over her by Mother Talzin, and now you have Morgan getting her dark confirmation with the hands being laid on her and the passing on of this, shadow. I thought that was quite interesting, but it's like kind of creepy at the same time to think of this as like, the dark version. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, just for a quick thought, I wanted to mention about something that came that I don't know if you guys saw this, like with when it comes to Ezra, and I might butcher the name because I'm still getting used to him. But is Eman Esfandi, I think, who plays Ezra in the show? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but Taylor Gray, who did the voice of Ezra on the animated series, I definitely think that Eman has I think he's got it down. Like I thought he was convincing. There were a few moments, especially where he would say something or like a mannerism where I'm like, yeah, that's Ezra. Or when he says hi to Hera at the end, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but that was so like, I felt like that just felt so real, And what really got me when he runs out on the wing, it was like such a Rebels moment. Like you have this really beautiful, meaningful moment, with Ahsoka and Sabine. And he runs out and he's like, hey guys. And he's like, hold his lightsaber. He's like, I just finished, and it just felt like, and then he just stares. I just felt like that was absolutely like something that would happen in Rebels. Like you'd get those like comic moments right in the middle of that serious, like right before an attack or something, and it was, it just felt right.
His voice tempo is almost exactly like, the voice in Rebels. I mean, because I watched an episode of Rebels and watched Ahsoka and I was like, really? That's not the same guy? Just the voice, the tempo. It was like, it just sounded like grown-up Ezra. So hats off. That was fabulous.
in a show that's full of great adaptations from the cartoon, the animation to live action. I mean, Mary Elizabeth Winstead doing Hera is amazing. Yes. And Sabine is fantastic. And Rosario Dawson is different, but still really embodies Ahsoka in a powerful way. But of all of them, the one that evoked the animated character the most for me was Ezra. Yeah.
And I find it ironic because he didn't end up in the show, and I didn't really necessarily expect him to, but Zeb, who we've of course seen introduced in briefly in Mandalorian season 3, and I thought it's ironic to me that Zeb and Chopper, like the two least human characters to put on screen in live action, are also the two that get like their original voices. Like it was just a nice little treat because hey, why not? It's not any different for them to play the role, to play the character, if they're up there. But we have this, of course, this charging the fortress, this it's so funny, like how many stories and legends and fairy tales and movies, like, I mean, I never get sick of this, call it a trope, whatever you will, but there's just something so like, yes, like I'm on the edge of my seat and there they are, charging, and Thrawn's like above them, just like blow it all away, just like, man, like you
rain
figure
hellfire upon them.
Yeah, and he said it so cool, and he's got this team of gunners who've had nothing better to do for the last 10 or 11 years than to really get good at their target practice, and they still can't hit
That's because they're all half dead.
That's true. Yeah, which brings up the next point quite nicely. But oh my gosh, I kind of two sides of this I want to ask you guys about. The cooler one, of course, the zombie stormtroopers, but maybe the lead into that. There was a lot of talk I saw online a couple places, and I kind of have gone back and forth on it. How'd you guys feel about the lightsaber choreography in this scene? Did it seem to line up with what came earlier in the season? Did it, seem inconsistent? I'm curious because I kind of had a thought on it.
Again, I'm not really a lightsaber choreography snob, so I it's like,
fair enough.
That's cool, lightsabers on screen. So I'm actually, I think I'm more curious. What have you been reading online, and what thought do you have, Mike?
Darn it, I wasn't expecting that. Just swallowing my Octu coffee. No, well, and I just rewatched it before this, and so I think my mind has changed a little bit. But there was a few. I don't know. There was this big buildup to like, here's Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra, and at least I think at the beginning of the scene, there's a few like defensive posture type things where it looked a little clunky to me at first. Like my first thought was it looked a little unsophisticated or looked a little unchoreographed, a little mechanical, a little like looked like they weren't comfortable, especially Ezra. Now, as the scene goes on, though, there's some really cool things. Like it really kind of picks up, and there's some pretty interesting, especially that last thing where like he pulls them and like she slices them, and there's that awesome shot like standing there, because that was cool. But then another thought occurred to me where it was like, I wonder if, I'm not saying that I wish this show had been animated. I love it live action, but that actually got me wondering, what would this season look like, if it had just been Rebels season 6? We could do a whole other episode just on that. It was just kind of a curious, like an artistic question maybe, but yeah, I kind of retract originally what I thought, but I did see some other people mentioning that online that were like, oh, what the choreography? They got me really kind of snarky with it, but saying that like this wasn't nearly as good as her fight with Baylan earlier, or it looked phoned in. I didn't agree with that, but I just didn't know if you guys had felt like there was anything that noticeable about it. So
the only thing that helped me through it was when watching it the second time, she said to draw them all out. And that's when I realized that she was literally hanging back to get all of them to come into the same room with them. So I was like, okay, I can accept her just deflecting mechanically, waiting for all of them to come into the same room.
In my mind, it's all of these characters, like how you were saying, were from an animated series. We're used to seeing them jump 20 feet in the air, do 30 different flips.
That's a good point.
Move at very insane speeds, and now we're seeing them as a human actor in there. Representing the characters, which makes it a lot harder to be able to do that. So
that's a good point. Even just something like Ahsoka's run, she would always do that. Like she'd like fan out and just run like 40 miles an hour or something.
But even then, I mean, some of the basic things that for me seemed a little bit off. Like whenever she was deflecting the bullets, it looked like Ahsoka was just standing there with her two lightsabers down. It's like, like just moving them up and down kind of thing, and not really doing like much of the practice kind of stuff that we saw her doing, which would have been like a nicer thing to see, but I guess that sort of fit more with the later fight.
That's true, yeah.
But I don't know. It's definitely interesting to see that. And I also heard that part of the reason why their fights are different than like episode 3 fights is because they are using a different kind of lightsaber now compared to what they did with all of the CGI.
Is that because they're using the ones that are actually like the light up? They have the LEDs in them, like they're in their training sabers, but they're not blue painted metal sticks that they can just really wail maybe quite the same way.
They have a lot of more weight on the other side of them, which offsets a lot of the balance.
Okay.
Which actually becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Physics.
Well, it's funny because I actually wonder if that isn't more in line with what Lucas kind of originally envisioned, because he talked so much about, you know, the idea of the lightsaber being this energy weapon, and it's heavy, and, you know, you have to hold it with two hands, and like that was, so, you know, he had talked about that a lot early on, as opposed to, you know, really prior swordsmanship in a lot of Hollywood films where it was just the sort of one-handed rapier kind of stuff. And so that's kind of ironic maybe that now that they're actually a little little different kind of, you know, device they're using. It looks great though. I mean, it absolutely looks awesome, because it's like the closest looking, I feel like, to a real lightsaber as we really have. I feel like and the lighting and everything is just awesome. Actually, Kathryn, let me ask you about that quick, because, you know, as an artist, because you've talked about this before and other shows I've been on with, you know, what do you think about just the look of this and the lighting and, you know, anything from the show that really jumped out at you artistically?
I mean, it's all been playing together so beautifully that I end up watching too much TV. Because I'll see something and go, I know I've seen that before. And even today, rewatching the Rebels, where they end up first finding Maul.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, those towers look like the towers that were around the castle that we're at now on, what is it called again? I watched too much TV today. Peridia, thank you. And then my husband's like, well, they're not exactly the same because these have faces on them. I go, I know they're not the same, but as Lucas said, they do rhyme. They are the same general shape. So you're getting all this repetition, so it feels familiar yet different and new. And so, I mean, that's kind of something that we do in sacred art, is you want to have something be familiar, follow the tradition, and yet new to the person who's creating it. So there's always that, you know, constant repetition and building from the tradition. So it was neat just to see how all that overlays, especially when we eventually get to the statues of the Mortis gods.
Well, and that's, I was just thinking too, because I just rewatched all those, the Mortis art the other day. And again, we'll get probably that in more detail here near the end, but there was some of the stuff I hadn't noticed until I rewatched that. But like some of the, like the lines and circles and some of that, you know, in like the map room and stuff like that. And up when they're on the top there, and like Shin and Balin are talking in a previous episode, and there's those little, like, the, you know, the stone kind of monoliths and that kind of stuff, like the henges, like around the top. That was very reminiscent of Mortis as well, mixed with some Night Sister stuff. And it's just, it's a visual vocabulary, I think, right? You know, it's like you recognize it, but it's so cool. Let me jump back to Zombie Stormtroopers, because that's just I said to Dom, well, the episode description here, I mentioned to Dom, I was laughing, the title, you know, of course, right, the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. I was like, how close do you need to get, like, when can the Lewis estate sue you? You know, for like, if it's like the Lion, the Witch, and the Warlord, like, okay, too close. The Jedi, there's no, you know. So, I meant to ask that earlier. I don't know if that was just a fun title they went with. Clearly, it's a hat tip to that. But like, I as a big Lewis fan, I didn't really catch anything in particular in this episode that was like a specific reference to that so much. But maybe I missed something. Did you guys get anything other than just the title? I didn't.
I mean, we did have the witches. Not really.
Yeah, for sure.
The witches are there. I mean, them riding on the howlers made me think about the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie, when at the end they're riding on their horses back to the wardrobe.
Yeah.
And then you have Anakin standing there at the end. What is he, Aslan? I mean,
I don't know. Well, and I was thinking it would be so funny if, like, Balin's, I guess it would have blunted that whole scene if Balin's standing on the finger of the father eating Turkish delight. just like staring off, like, no, this is so good, I gotta go get more of this. Like, oh, come on, guys. Like, Dave, come on, you can do better than that. Oh my gosh.
No, I think it was just the writer's room was going, or maybe just Dave was going through, okay, I need titles for these. Oh, what's this one about? Well, you know, the Jedi, the Witches, and the Warlord. Ooh, I gotta
go with that.
You know,
it might be, you know, one of, if not the best episodic titles we've seen yet. Oh my goodness. Well, I think the big one, arguably, I almost put a highlight on this, because probably one of the biggest things in this episode, and it's been something we've been wondering about this whole season, and I really want to open this up to you guys here, is, I guess Sabine's a Jedi after all. Or
a Force user,
anyway. How did you guys, there were a few times, I think in the season where, of course, they teased this, or, is it gonna? Is the cup gonna move? Is the wall moving? Oh no, it's just rumbling because Thrawn's starship is coming. Did you guys? I'm just wondering. We're going around the table here. Did you guys think this was going to happen? We'll believe you if you did. We won't just say that you are saying it now. But no, I'm curious what you guys thought.
I mean, I didn't think they would tease it from the beginning if they didn't mean to have it pay off. So I don't think I didn't think she was going to show as much ability with the Force as she used in this episode. But I did think that she was going to demonstrate some ability, because I think one of the themes that the show is working on is that idea that the Force is everywhere and everyone has access to it. Talent plays a role, but everyone has some access to it, even Sabine.
Right. How about you, Josh? And I don't know if not to put you on the spot, but I don't know what your opinion of episode 8 is, or episode 9, the sequel movies, of course. But Robert brings up a good point, and maybe I can kick this all around. But I'm curious, what your take is on what he was just talking about with Sabine being this. I don't know. Is this a resurrection of maybe what Rian Johnson was attempting, in your opinion, to get at this idea of you can all have access, like that broom kid, to the Force? I don't know. What do you think?
I thought it was interesting that they chose, either way, I saw it as, if she doesn't have the Force, it'll be a valuable lesson for them to teach that, no matter how hard you try, there's some things that you can't do, and you gotta know your limits in a sense. But then there's also, now she's a Jedi, or not a Jedi, but she can use this. That was the one reason why she couldn't be a Jedi. And now it's where's her path going to go? And then she's a Mandalorian now who also can use the Force. There's only been one other Jedi who did that. And that led to the whole...
You mean Grogu?
Right.
Oh. I guess he is one now. From Mandalore.
Grogu. Is it Din Grogu? Isn't that his new name?
Yes.
I guess now, yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a good point.
I didn't hate that they made her a Jedi, or made her that way, but it was definitely a decision that I don't know if they went about the best way, at least in terms of the episode, because it seemed like it just randomly clicked, and the next thing you know, she's like, I'll just throw you, Ezra. It'll be fine.
I'll pull off the greatest Force push.
Not even 5 minutes later, she's like, I just grabbed a lightsaber. I can throw you. Same thing. So,
well, to be fair, it does, I think, in the grand scheme of the Force powers we've seen, the two that seem to be the most, you gotta have these ones in your back pocket, or the push and the pull.
Yeah.
So I suppose she's like, okay, I did the pull. Here's this other one that everybody does. Next up's the throw.
Well, and it is, as they said, this is a classic move that Ezra and Kanan would do over and over during Rebels. And
yeah.
It's definitely nice to see them do that, but I feel like they should have thrown Sabine or something a little different. It just seemed very rushed at the end there, of having her just immediately kind of have all this access.
I wonder now, did you guys remember in the Mortis stuff, I watched a couple on Rebels, with the gate, in the world between worlds, because I was trying to connect the dots as best I could with anything I could pull quick, in the last 2 days, which I didn't have a lot of time to do it, but from Clone Wars and from Rebels. And when Sabine and Ezra are trying to get down closer to check out the painting of the Mortis gods, Hera's up on the hill with Zeb, and she's apprehensive. She doesn't want them to go. Kanan has just died not too long before this. And she's trying to call him back, and then she has this moment, and there's a neat camera pan, and you see what looks basically, to all the intents and purposes, like Kanan's Force ghost behind her with his hand on her shoulder, and you see her kind of go like this, but she doesn't see him, I guess. Or then it cuts back and he's not there. So I don't know, I wonder. I think there's always people asking this, how do Force ghosts work? I don't really think but it's like, evidently, they're it's like the Saints, right? Sometimes they're visible, sometimes they're not, but maybe, they're always with us. So maybe there's something to that. I wouldn't be surprised if Kanan has an active role, here in, maybe he gave a little boost to Sabine's push.
Nudge. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be a
push to her push.
That's my head canon on that one.
I have to say, I did not need or look for her to have Jedi skills. I'm fine with how it turned out, except for one thing. Her skill level changed so quickly, so fast, that it almost made Luke's growth as a Jedi seem remedial. And it's funny because Huang said very clearly, as far as skill level goes, you're the worst,
you're the worst
of all that I've seen in 2,000 years. And it's like, okay, and I'm totally fine with everybody having some access to the Force. George Lucas has made that clear, that the Force is in all living things, and it's all how you have access to it. And being a volleyball coach over the last 30 years, I have to say that much like Ahsoka, one of my favorite projects is having a player who doesn't know that she's as good as she could be and working with that player. And it's so satisfying to see that one unexpected person that it's like, really? She's going to be able to do this? It's like, trust me. I know that this is going to work. And it's like, sure enough, that it eventually clicks. And then it's like, yep, I could see that was coming. So it's just kind of, it's the only reason why I accepted all of this. Cause it's like, I've been there as a teacher to see that one person come to a moment they didn't even think they could do. So,
sweet.
But I would have loved to have seen Ezra throw her just for her to have to trust in the Force that much to make that gap.
Yeah.
I mean, it does go back to the conversation between Ezra and Huyang earlier, when Ezra turns and wants to show off his shiny new lightsaber to Sabine, and she's gone. And he asks Huyang what happened between those two, and Huyang said, I don't know if I'm going to get the words exactly right, but something along the lines of, Ahsoka was afraid that if Sabine ever unblocked her abilities, she would become dangerous.
Because of the rage from, or the trauma, from the Mandalore destruction and
and the Purge of Mandalore,
right.
And that gave me the sense that it's not the ability that is lacking. It's that the block is so great. And so it kind of doesn't surprise me that when the wall falls down, she is very powerful in her use of the Force. But that said, there's the amount of power that you are putting out, and then there's the skill with which you use that power. And I would agree that her skill at using that power was a really quick learning curve for her.
Yeah.
But the plot demanded it, so
I think so. Yeah, and it's interesting to see. I want to jump to a couple other things here, and we can kind of round this out, because I think that kind of leaves us we come back to that, at the end, right, as she's there with Ahsoka, kind of what's the next step speculation. But just to jump back here for a second to picking up with Thrawn and their departure, that was, again, edge of my seat, waiting for that. And he's just so cool and calculating. And, I think he said it very clearly early in the episode, I misjudged the Jedi before, never again, and this whole thing, like, I'm not taking this bait. I'm not going to get in a fight with, like you flat out said, you can't underestimate the Padawan or the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker, and if you've read the books and he's well aware of who Anakin was, you really get the strong, I don't know if they officially confirm it, but they kind of officially confirm he knew who Vader was, because he kind of figures it out. Yeah, he figures it out. So that whole no, we're not gonna do that. Let's just jump, because then she's stuck unless she can find more space whales, and I'll deal with that later, So he's all about getting out of there, and he does it. They make it back to Dathomir, that's neat. We bring that full circle back to the, wreckage and ruins of the whole Night Sisters society that we're gonna have these three go back.
That brings up what Morgan said.
Yeah.
Thrawn's saying for the Empire, but he doesn't seem like he really means it. And then she waits for him to walk away, and she whispers for Dathomir.
For Dathomir.
She knows what happened on Dathomir in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that they were slaughtered. So it's like, this is really kind of an awkward spot. I thought it was interesting.
Well, and I keep wondering, too.
I mean, I was wondering, I was wondering all the way up to this episode, why are the Night Sisters, why are the Great Mothers working with Thrawn and acting like he's in charge of them?
Yeah.
Doing what he commands. But now it's becoming clear, he's going to get them back to Dathomir, and they are planning to rebuild in a powerful way.
I would have loved to have seen the hint that Ezra gave, saying that Thrawn resurrected them. I mean, was this like, pulling the ring wraiths out of their cages in Lord of the Rings, or what? That's kind of freaky.
Well, and this might be as good a place as any to kind of tap into some of this Mortis speculation. So, Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you here quick with this question, because I'm just wondering the, well, I guess let me just ask you, like, what about the Mortis? Because you said you had highlighted on your notes too. I said Mortis. What did you want to mention with that in particular? Was there anything that really, you're speculating on as you think's a connection here?
I think there's going to be something relating to Anakin representing and being the father, and sort of refilling those roles and having his purpose back in that. And also even just looking at the statues and sort of seeing how things started lining up, how the daughter statue was destroyed because she died first. And then you see the Owl Morai with Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like Ahsoka's going to be somewhat like a daughter with this true good in her, which she may need to learn and develop a bit more. And then you see Baylan looking for power straight ahead, and then after that it goes right to Anakin, just in the middle, or at least like at the end there.
Did you guys know? I caught this the other day. I don't know if it was Star Wars Theory or one of those YouTube guys had a really interesting, and I don't know if Dave Filoni brought this up, but this clearly has to be something that he drew from. But I'm not really read up on a lot of Norse mythology, and Marvel doesn't count. But this was so cool. Did you guys see this Skull and Hati thing?
Yeah,
which was really cool because it's a Norse mythology. Skull, or I'm just pronouncing it that way, is a wolf according to Snorri Sturluson's Prose Edda, chases the sun, personified as a goddess soul, riding her chariot across the sky. And it's almost like a yin and yang thing. Like the nighttime equivalent is Hati, which is a wolf that chases the moon. And it's this cycle that's supposed to go until Ragnarok. But what's interesting was, whoever's video I was watching, he had suggested, is there possibly a little bit of a, tongue-in-cheek kind of, thing there with the chasing the sun of S-O-N instead of S-U-N, because the sun from the Mortis arc, is there some kind of connection coming up with Baylan and the sun and this drift into the dark side? And I don't know, that's kind of a cool thing, because clearly that mountain at the end with that like reflecting little thing on the top, I mean, that's exactly like the imagery you see in the Mortis episodes, right over chiefly over that monastery where the father was staying. So,
but it's father imagery. I mean, I very much think Baylan is aiming at the father.
So he
whether
wants
it's
that
encountering the father or becoming the father or something like that.
Showdown with Anakin. Yeah. That'd be interesting.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I will say, even in the Clone Wars episodes, I never quite bought Anakin as being a replacement for the father. I mean, Anakin is so very much the son. He's so very much the one who is consumed with the dark side and power and so on. And so I just never really bought that. And maybe that makes me a Star Wars heretic, but that's normal for me.
Well, I thought there was a real, and I missed opportunity, maybe not, because depending on how they flesh this out. I honestly at the time thought that there was potential. I think a lot of us might have potential for that to be fleshed out with Kylo and Rey, and it just, I mean, it wasn't ever addressed. It was definitely not part of the movies at all. But I just thought, like, in this greater mythology, this impulse to have this duality, that would have been, a Force dyad. Like, what? Like, you can't just make stuff up now, Palps. Like, come on.
Now, see, I had no problem with Kylo and Ren having that connection through the Force.
Right, yeah.
Because that goes back to the Legends first books from Timothy Zahn.
Right.
Where the Emperor had Mara, who he could connect with anywhere in the universe.
Right.
And so it was like, okay, that makes sense that can happen.
Gotcha.
But the thing with
well, and even Empire Strikes Back, Luke and Leia.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, but this was a little more like actually physically in the same room, where Luke and Leia could just feel each other there instead of actually see each other across the galaxy.
Like, here's a lightsaber, like, through the Force.
Yeah.
Which was,
exactly.
Dude, this is awesome.
But, but it was just interesting, like, to think about, Baylan and Shin and being the wolves from the north and south. It's like, okay, and you had
they're riding wolves,
the daughter,
right in the show, which was cool.
And the daughter and the son or when they were in their little Mortis world, chasing each other literally day after day. But the thing I have a problem with is that Baylan wants to end the cycle. So that's where I'm like going, wait a minute, if he wants to end the cycle, why would he want to be part of it? He doesn't want this continual Force cycle. He doesn't want this repetition. He wants the power to end it. So I just kind of found that, kind of odd.
I wonder if he almost doesn't, because he said something about the beginning, like he went, a new beginning or back to the beginning or something. Like, maybe, I don't know, is there something in him? This is all speculation, but, like wanting to be the father with no son or daughter. Like, it's just, forget this, that's just.
That could be.
Me, it's all in me. Yeah. I am the balance or something. I don't know. I wonder.
Yeah, he had no problem dumping Shin.
Because my original thought was that he wanted to, I knew War of the Worlds was on the table, and I thought, is this or not War of the Worlds? This is Star Wars. It's way bigger than War of the Worlds. Well, I guess it is the same thing. But the world between worlds, I was kind of wondering, is he trying to get there to go back and stop the temple from being destroyed, or just some sort of, simple time travel kind of thing? But I think it's deeper for him. It might still involve the world between worlds, but I don't know.
The only other thing I saw was rewatching Rebels when they met with Thrawn, and Maul wanted the power, the ultimate power. And the Sith holocron, when it was opened, said knowledge is power, and power is to destroy life at your command. So he's like, is Baylan going for that kind of power? So.
What was your take on that, Josh? Did you final thoughts on Balin's skull? No, because it's just so, I don't know what his deal is, and yeah,
you don't really know either, and that's the hard part. It's the ending didn't really give any sort of future as to where him or Shin are going. Obviously, they're on their separate paths, it seems now, but they're just going out, and it seems like almost aimlessly just looking for their definition of power.
Yeah, because he said something to her like, or she said, do you think that power's out here, or do you think we'll be able to get it? Something like that. And he said, if the stories are true. And it's like, what? Mm-hmm. What stories? Mortis God stories? Because he says, like, cryptically, the stories that, we heard in the temple about this galaxy, and it's, but I don't know. I'm not aware of anything specific outside of this show, about this Peridia, and so Dave's got a lot of like room to work, I guess, here. But like you said, Robert, at the outset, I don't know how long we're gonna have to wait to get some more details, but.
Yeah, and I mean the things I've read online seem to indicate that they weren't necessarily planning a season 2, which, it says, I had a quote here. It says, "We hear that Ahsoka season 2 is more of a reality in the conversation, though nothing is locked yet." And the way this season ended, this show ended, it just opens up so many questions. Like in your outline, you say, what is Thrawn's end game? Right. And that's a valid question. But what is Balin's end game? Yeah. What is Balin's end game? We know that it's got something to do with the Mortis gods, but we don't know what. Is he trying to become one? Is he trying to destroy them? Is he trying to what? Yeah. So that's, I think, my biggest frustration with the show is it kind of leaves you on not even a cliffhanger, just it kind of leaves you on a mystery box.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like they had a plan for opening that mystery box, which, I like a mystery box to be opened myself.
Well, and I wonder, because, if this is building up to a, as Kathy Kennedy said years ago, a culminating event, and now they're giving seemingly a little more shape to that with this Filoni film that's supposedly supposed to tie together, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, but in 2 hours? Like that's where because I kept thinking that 2 hours, 2.5, like a feature film. I want to see it. I want to. Like, I'm there already in the future someday. But and as much as I still am a guy who thinks that Star Wars' real home is in the theater, I gotta say the way that the storytelling has changed, right, in the last couple of years, I fear maybe a little bit that there might be a new pressure that wasn't there before. With like, okay, well now what are you gonna do in 2 hours? I mean. So, yeah, because that's in the Thrawn thing, like I said, that could be a whole other episode. I won't get into it too much. But, if you know anything about his character, that he comes into his service with the Empire as sort of not an afterthought, but it's like I always thought it's like a side mission. Like, he's all about the Chiss and the Chiss ascendancy, and he's this faithful officer, and that's his whole thing and his whole heritage and the whole legacy of his people. And you'd never know that, from watching Rebels or watching this. He's just this deadly, Imperial officer. Long live the Empire. The Emperor's dead. Like, I just don't understand what Thrawn's, now, I mean, the Chiss ascendancy is in, the original galaxy. So maybe there's just a practical, like, he has to get back first, I guess is a big piece of it. But I don't think his plan seems to just be to get back and be like, all right, well, I'm done with all of this. This was great. Didn't work out. I'm going back to my guys, So the
only thing that helped with that was the one line he said was, he says for the Empire, kind of mockingly, but then he says for the security of our galaxy. And that was Thrawn's ultimate end game. He wants security for his people. So he was just looking for a strong power to help secure his people's part of the galaxy.
And because
so
his
like
original
the only thing
run-in,
that is like, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. Because his original run-in, I think, with Anakin, right, when they have the sort of like, prequel Thrawn books or whatever, that's, that gives him a taste of this galactic conflict between, separatists. Like he gets wind of that and starts to, that's going to affect us. And well, now this empire is emerging and we should go see what that is. So yeah, that might be, maybe it's he's got a real, he knows what he's doing, right? I mean, he's got an end game.
Baylan is on Peridia looking for a great power, a power greater than the Night Sisters and greater than the Empire. Mm-hmm. And there's this implication that Thrawn and the Great Mothers were afraid of this power in an earlier episode. Mm-hmm. That kind of was at least a possible implication. And so maybe Thrawn is afraid that this power from Peridia and from this other galaxy is a threat to their own galaxy. The original galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking there's so many more like rabbit trails we could potentially go down here. Maybe I'll just go around here. Like if we're a little over an hour, maybe I'll just get your guys kind of final thoughts here on the episode. Any last minute things you want to share about the season in general? Why don't I start with you, Josh? What do you think?
I hope there's a season 2 to finally give us answers to whatever that ending was. There's too much mystery there. Yeah, I'll leave it with that.
Bust open the mystery box. Amen.
Yeah.
What about you, Kathryn?
Well, I was just happy to see that zombies in Star Wars can only be killed the same way zombies are in TV shows here. If you don't take their head off or stab them in the brain, they're going to keep coming back.
Nice.
I did like that, by the way. I love that. I failed to mention that earlier. Sabine, it was a different angle, but Sabine basically did the Kylo Ren quick lightsaber on through the head thing. So we've seen it twice at least. So Robert, how about
got him right through the brain stem. Kill that zombie.
Yeah. I guess something we haven't talked about is like a lot of people I've seen are comparing Ahsoka to Andor, and I think I love both series, and I think they are both trying to do very different things. And one of the things I love about Star Wars is it is a big enough sort of universe that it can contain radically different kinds of storytelling. So yeah, I think that's my big takeaways. Ahsoka did what it was trying to do, and I think it did it, not flawlessly, but really well.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think that's going to be it from us for tonight, for this one. Listeners, we can't do this without you, so please feel free to keep in touch with us. You can always email any feedback you have on the show to starwars@sqpn.com. Or you can also visit the Star Wars Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You can find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on the previously mentioned X at SQPN. Previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars can be found by visiting sqpn.com/Star Wars. We'd also like to take a moment, as always, to thank our Secrets of Star Wars patrons. And this week, I'm going to give a special shout out to Chad G, Christopher H, Mark, Barb G, and David F. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Please tell all your friends to follow The Secrets of Star Wars in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, really any of your favorite podcast apps, or the SQPN YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe over there, click that bell to get notifications, and we'd appreciate a nice rating. If you could leave us a nice rating over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else that you do those sorts of things. And always want to mention the merch store, of course, too, sqpn.com/merch, where you can get pretty much anything and everything over there. So, and I don't know, Robert, if you have anyone has anything to add to this, my note I have down here was we'll be back in 2 weeks, it looks like, since, we're off the week-to-week shows here for new content, taking a deep dive into the weird and creepy world of the Night Sisters. Is that right?
That's the plan. Yeah. And as before, when there's not a weekly series coming out, we're gonna aim for about every other week.
Different lots of topics.
Because you can't go too long without talking Star Wars.
True, and that'll be a little pre-Halloween-ish episode too, which will be a nice touch. So until next time, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars. Josh Beeghley, thank you so much.
Always happy to join.
Robert King, thank you as well.
Hey, may the Force be with you and the Lord.
Yes, and Kathryn Laffrey, thank you so much as well for joining us.
Thank you. This is fun.
And once again, I'm Mike Creavey. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another podcast on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/secrets.